What's up, Mike? What do you got on the docket today?
Well, I'm gonna steal everything from your interview with Mark Kelly.
There we go.
That's it.
That's a good one.
Isn't that the greatest form of flattery? I'm gonna steal it all. We're gonna do most of the show on your interview.
Perfect. I'm glad we got him in studio this morning.
Yeah, it was good to get him in.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you guys got him.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got to see him.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he's doing a Medicaid event later today with Senator Gallego.
Yeah,
so I'll be at that.
I've never actually been in a room with him.
Okay, yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Well, not weird. I mean, I think he's got a restraining order. I'm pretty sure against me. But it's good. I'm glad he was in. It was great. It was a very interesting and compelling conversation.
Yeah, he's personable, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'll give him that. They both are. Gallego is too. Gallego's been in studio with me, and we get along really well. We don't agree on much, which is fun because it's fun to disagree with somebody. Well, you and me,
I think it's their military background.
I do too.
It's just they've been through who knows what.
They've been through very serious issues with people they count on and trust, but don't necessarily agree with. That's called maturity.
Yes.
Yeah. So thanks.
Cool.
All right. Good morning. Yes, it was a great interview with Mark Kelly, the senator. We're going to talk about this. It's interesting. I'm going to start off with this because, of course, we're going to start with what's going on in D.C. That's a big issue. We are going to get to the economy stuff. PPI numbers are in, which is the producer price index, what it costs to make goods. It jumped more than expected, so that is not necessarily good news. And so we're going to get to that in just a few minutes. But I still think the big issue is what's happening in D.C. and the way it's being discussed. So this is just a little bit. If you missed it, if you're just jumping in, Senator Mark Kelly just a few minutes ago was in with Arizona's Morning News.
He ran on it, and now he's implementing it. But if you really were supportive of law enforcement, why are you pardoning 1,600 or over 1,000 criminals from what happened on January 6th. These are people that beat up cops.
Yeah, and these are people that are beating up cops now, and you're making excuses for them. And let's go a step further, Senator. You were one of the people that said that unless the Republicans signed on to that one piece of legislation that the Democrats came up with in conjunction with one Republican, that nothing at the border could be fixed, that the only way to fix it and to show that Republicans were being serious about border security was to pass that piece of legislation that spent billions of dollars in foreign aid and was not solely about. So this has been a political issue for everybody, not just President Trump, not just Republicans, but for your party as well. Why would anybody listen to what people are saying? Senator Mark Kelly was one of the people that was loudest about the Republicans not being serious about wanting to fix the border, that unless Congress acted on that one piece of legislation that 3 senators came up with that was loaded with all kinds of other stuff that had nothing to do with the border, that nothing could be fixed, that President Biden's hands were tied. Talking about supporting law enforcement, Border Patrol numbers and the people that want to be Border Patrol agents are going through the roof. Morale at Border Patrol is higher than it's been in a very, very long time. I got that from the head of the Border Patrol Union. I mean, it's just, this is, I get it. Everybody is involved in politics when you're a politician, but to act like you're on the side of angels and the other side is just making this a political maneuver if you really supported law enforcement. Well, I don't think President Biden supported law enforcement at all. They didn't allow the Border Patrol to do their jobs. Immigration and Customs Enforcement had to reallocate all of their assets away from protecting the ports of entry. We had machines that scanned for drugs at the border that were waiting to go that didn't have people to operate the machines because we were processing asylum seekers through a Border Patrol or through an amnesty app where people made appointments to come into the country. That's what was happening last year. That's what was happening a year ago. So again, I don't agree with everything. I said yesterday, the business owner in Peoria that's been here for such a long time, she shouldn't be deported. I agree that there are people that have been caught up in this dragnet, but nobody is saying, well, after 10 million people came in 4 years, we had to do something. We don't know how many gotaways there are. We know there are tons of people on the terror watch list that came into this country undetected. There are 300,000 unaccompanied minors we cannot account for or haven't been able to account for. We found a bunch of kids working in that marijuana farm, slave labor, child labor laws being violated. All that was focused on was the rocks being thrown through the windows of ICE vehicles. So Senator Kelly makes a comment about what happened about January 6th. I agree with you. January 6th was a horrible day in America. But how is it any different? Last night, there's a video online of a young woman assaulting agents. She got arrested, but she ran up and punched a cop in the back. Another guy threw a sandwich at a cop. We watched what happened in L.A. We watched what happened at this marijuana farm. Why aren't you with the same passion denouncing the same passion you continue to talk about January 6th? Why aren't you as passionately disgusted by this act of violence against law enforcement? Why are you condoning an Arizona senator, state senator, not in the United States Senate, an Arizona state senator, bad-mouthing and calling law enforcement agents masked goons? Why not? Why are you not passionately against that? I sat in this studio, this very studio, with Gatos the afternoon of January 6th, with tears in my eyes talking about what happened in our country and watching people that I align myself with politically desecrate the United States Capitol and fight with police. I thought it was a disgusting display. And I sat here and I talked about it. Whenever I was asked, I've denounced what happened on January 6th. And when people in my party make excuses and they say, well, hang on a minute, there were FBI, and get this is all true. There were FBI agents that had infiltrated the crowd. They were dressed as MAGA. You mean federal agents are allowed to dress in a sneaky way to infiltrate criminals? You had no problem with that. But when ICE agents do it in Tucson Electric Power uniforms in Tucson for an immigration raid, we've got to make laws to stop that. But I denounced every bit of what happened. And I can tell you with all certainty that if I had been there on January 6th, I would have never gone into that Capitol building. I don't care if they open the doors for me. I don't care. I would never desecrate that building. And anybody that committed acts of violence or committed an act of vandalism inside the United States Capitol should be held accountable. Absolutely, without a doubt. But now you're going to say, well, if he was really serious, he is serious. We've released 2 months in a row, zero illegal immigrants into the U.S. They have militarized with military zones at the border, so now the military can make arrests. We've now cut a deal with the cartels in Mexico. We were talking about designating cartels as a terrorist organization, and you've got the president of Mexico that just sent 26 cartel members and extradited them to the U.S. for trial, including the murder of a federal agent going all the way back to 1985. We have seen these, and again, this idea of low-hanging fruit and we're going after the easy things. I just think that it's disingenuous for someone to criticize someone who's actually done something when you said it couldn't be done. You were one of the voices that said it couldn't be done. That unless we change the law to the law you supported, and it's the only law that was ever proposed without debate, without modification, without any kind of editing at all. It just was pass or fail, and when it failed, you said, see, the Republicans don't care. And then Donald Trump got reelected president of the United States, and within 30 days, we had a full reversal at the United States border. Within the first 6 months, we have had the lowest illegal crossings into the U.S. we've seen in decades. Now, it's not perfect, and I will call it out when it's not perfect, but the idea that somehow he's not serious about supporting law enforcement after watching what happened the previous 4 years and the defund the police movement that was happening, those are the people that didn't support law enforcement. What's happening right now, I don't agree with every part of it, like I don't agree with every part of anything, but the idea that you're going to bring up January 6th, but you're not going to denounce what's happening. Why? When you watch in L.A., as they're standing on overpasses throwing rocks through moving vehicle windows that are occupied by law enforcement, when you see an enforcement raid, whether you agree with the raid or not, happening on a marijuana farm, and you are watching farm workers throwing rocks through the windows of federal vehicles, when you're watching now in Washington, D.C., protesters throwing things and assaulting cops, when an Arizona state senator calls the ICE agents masked goons, and then you're going to jump back to January 6th. That I just don't think that there are many people that give a lot of credibility to that. If I had stood up, if I had been one of the people that stood up and made excuses for January 6th, if I was one of the Republican voices that said, hang on, they were invited into the Capitol, they were set up, the FBI had infiltrated the crowd, the FBI was the one that was ginning up the violence and trying to cause the violence and trying to make them violent, and they got them to do that. If I had made those excuses, I would have no credibility on this issue now when I defend anything. You couldn't have baited me into violence inside the United States Capitol. You could never bait me into violence against law enforcement. Never. Never. I've had horrible interactions with cops on 2 different occasions in my life where the cops were absolutely unequivocally wrong, and I would even go as far as one of them broke the law. Absolutely a true story. Absolutely broke the law. And that cop later in his career was arrested and went to prison. Long story, but it happened. He didn't go to prison because of what he did to me. So I've had horrible interactions. I've never been disrespectful to law enforcement. Never. So you couldn't have baited me into violence on January 6th. I'd have never swung an American flag or a Trump flag at a law enforcement agent. I would have never gone into the United States Capitol and committed act of vandalism. I would have never done that. You couldn't have made me. But if I had made excuses for it, I would have no credibility now in supporting what's happening. Just like all of the people that denounce January 6th and bring it up every chance they get, but they won't passionately denounce what's happening now to law enforcement, and you say you're a law enforcement supporter, that's where the problem lies. United voices should be saying, we don't care whether you agree or not. Committing acts of violence have got to stop. Knock it off. And that's not what they're saying. It's not at all what they're saying. So I know, a little fiery way to start the show, but it's just, we all want an end to violence. We all want us to communicate and get along. But when you come in and act like I'm not the politician here, the president is, when you were a big part of the politics, it's got to be called out. It's got to be called out.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch and listen to the new season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.